Venezuela has announced that it might just ditch the dollar in favor of other currencies. The country's president, Nicolas Maduro, says his country will soon sell its oil, natural gas and gold using the Russian ruble, China's yen, Japan's yen, Indian's rupee and the euro. Maduro has emphasized that if the plan goes ahead, it will be in response to new U.S. sanctions against Venezuela. He accused Washington of using what he described as illegal monetary and trade practices to destabilize his country and force a change of power.
The main advantage to Maduro to ditch the U.S. dollar is that U.S. foreign policy, or particularly monetary policy, can't affect the country as sharply. If they are reliant upon U.S. dollars for U.S. trade, then any decisions made by the U.S. can severely affect them. One of their things is to make it more difficult for anyone to trade in U.S. dollars. They can place greater sanctions and have greater control over the trade that Venezuela can have. It can, however, get out from underneath that by choosing to trade in a basket of currencies rather than just the regular United States dollars.
It is not clear how successful Maduro's plan to ditch the dollar would be if he tries to implement it. But his announcement has once again highlighted the fact that many countries are thinking of doing the same. What economists believe could eventually undermine the supremacy of the greenback. Other countries that have so far announced similar plans include Russia, China and Iran, just to name a few. But why are these countries contemplating such a drastic move? And how will it affect international politics?
The dollar is not completely invulnerable. It relies on people using it, and that is mostly based upon the U.S.'s domination of being able to make other people use it. However, people can get together and decide not to actually challenge that monetary position. A good example of this would be the BRICS countries, who have gotten together to form their own economic alliance, one free from the power of the United States. The European Union is also a good example. One of the things the European Union wanted to do was to challenge the power of the U.S. dollar in the region, and they did so by getting together and forming the euro. So it is entirely possible to undermine the U.S., and they would lose their hegemonic position, because we can't forget that even just Saddam Hussein deciding to trade oil in euros instead of U.S. dollars, and Libya trying to build the gold dinar were certainly enough to challenge the U.S. When compared to something as big as the BRICS, we could see that they could very well be a massive challenge to the U.S. dollar.
Russian President Vladimir Putin recently said Moscow was ready to work with its partners to counter what he described as the excessive domination of the dollar. The announcement followed earlier moves by Russia and China to trade in their own currencies instead of the American currency. Both countries have opened banks in their respective capitals to facilitate this. Russia's motivation? U.S. economic sanctions against the country over its alleged involvement in the Ukraine crisis and other issues. Iran has already taken a similar initiative. The country, which faced U.S.-led sanctions over its nuclear energy program, is trying to immune itself from any new U.S. move to use the dollar as a political tool.
I think it's very likely that other countries will follow suit, particularly if Venezuela is tremendously successful in doing so. Good examples to follow would be what the world would need at this time to undermine the U.S. dollar. Because it is a tremendous risk for a country to take. Now, it's not that hard for someone like China or Russia to take that kind of action, but it's much riskier for a smaller country like Venezuela to take that kind of action.
It may still be too soon to judge how successful efforts by Russia, China, Iran and Venezuela to move away from the greenback will be. What is clear is that there is a sense of growing dissatisfaction on the global stage against what many see as the dollar's excessive dominance of the hard currency. This could eventually lead to the dethroning of the dollar once countries join forces to use other currencies in their trade. It might take quite a few years to do so, but it is most definitely on the cards.